Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And this one goes in the class of you couldn't make it up. Scotland is basically bankrupt. It can't afford to house people, to look after people, to treat their mental health. It can barely afford to run the NHS. There are so many services being cut. It's frozen council tax but won't fund it. So everything that's non-essential for councils is going to close. Everything. It's utter chaos. However, thousands of pounds can be spent on an action plan so that people can identify as cats. I'm not making this up, right? It's the non-binary action plan. It's so that if you want to identify as a cat or a man if you're a woman if you're a man, if you want to be a furry, it doesn't matter. They're spending lots and lots of money on this so that people have the right to do it. Well, they can identify as what they like, but I don't have an obligation to go along with their delusions. But now this is just absolutely crazy. But we are going to take a look at it because it just goes to show where the priorities for this government lie. And it isn't in looking after people, it's in pushing politics, identity politics, gender politics, and all sorts of weird things that people don't agree with. Here goes. I mean, it is a farce, isn't it? It's an absolute farce. SNP government spend thousands on non-binary action plan amid cat identifying claim. Do you want to identify as a cat? Meow meow, go shit in a box. People can do this, and you are going to be forced into accepting that these sad, mentally ill people are actually cats. You're not under any obligations, of course. They're going to try and insist you are, but you just look at them with a sad, pitiful face and say, would you like some psychiatric help? The SNP executive's non-binary action plan sparked a social media row after a Scottish Tory MSP pondered whether it was the right use of taxpayer cash. And you see that flag? That's the flag of the mentally ill. I don't care if you're gay. I've got gay people in my family. I don't care. Don't care who you're attracted to. But when you try to insist that a man is a woman and a woman is a man and that anyone can be a cat, that isn't attraction. That's a mental illness. And it is a delusion. And I am under no obligation to join you in your delusion. If a man wants to have sex with a man or a woman with a woman, I don't care. I do not care. But I will not be forced into a delusional agreement with these sad inadequates who seem to think that because they want to call themselves Susan and put on a dress, that I have to accept that they're women. I'll accept that they want to call themselves Susan. I'll call anyone what they want to be called by name, but I will not describe them as something that they are not. And if a man wants to be called Susan, fine, hello Susan. And if a man wants to wear a dress, hello Susan wearing a dress. But you're still a man. You're still a man called Susan in a dress. You know? Bloke in a frock. Anyway, the Scottish Government splashed out thousands on preparing its non-binary action plan amid claims that it was farcical as identifying as a cat. Earlier this year, the SNP-led executive published the document, which it proclaimed to be a world first. That's only because no one else has been mental enough to do it. It was criticised in some quarters, most quarters, as a waste of taxpayer cash and that the money should have been spent on more important issues. Well, say that ain't so. A Scottish Tory MSP, Murdo Fraser, said choosing to identify as non-binary is as valid as choosing to identify as a cat. I'm not sure governments should be spending time on action plans for either. Because there is no such thing as non-binary. There is only binary. Simple blood test. Check it out. Are you XY or XX? And that's it. What you call yourself is your own matter. What other people call you is up to them. But what you are is a matter of fact. Marion Calder of the Campaign Group for Women Scotland poured scorn on the recommendations, suggesting they were a distraction from more serious issues. She said Scotland appears to be on one track path to embarrassing itself in front of the world. Said rather than address real societal problems such as poverty, health, addiction, it's decided to make stuff up. It would be laughable if it wasn't so serious, she said, and anyone involved in this should hang their heads in shame. But they don't. They seem to think it's some kind of, look at us, we're wonderful, we're better than you because we care about these mentally ill people who seem to think that they're cats, or a man who wants people to treat him as a woman and he wants the right to undress and expose his genitals, his male genitals, in front of 9-year-old girls. We think this is marvellous. Look at us, our virtuousness is better than yours. No, you're dangerous child-abusing fuckwits. Anyway, now the Scottish Daily Express can reveal that the government spent £2,709 on its non-binary working group, which met regularly and helped to come up with the action plan. This expenditure covered the publication of the working group's report and the administration's response, and the remuneration for community members who attended meetings. How about just say, no, sod off, it's stupid, and save yourself £2,500 that could have gone on a bit of hospital care, could have paid for a couple of visits by social workers to elderly people who may be in dire need of help. There's many ways that money could have done actual more help than allowing a bunch of mentally ill people feel good about themselves. And I don't mean mentally ill in a bad way. I mean these people are just bonkers. Anyway, non-binary people do not identify as male or female. I do not care what they identify as. What they actually are is a matter of fact. They are male or female, regardless of what they think they are. And they say there's an entire 50-point action plan being drawn up by Scottish civil servants to address their needs. Their needs are simple. A psychiatrist. They are considered to be part of a transgender community and often use the pronouns they, them. Well, they can use them. I prefer he or she, based on their biological sex. The plan includes a review of gender information on identity documents, the impact of LGBT inclusive education. Well, you can take the LGB off that because LGBs are men who like men, women who like women, and people of either sex who like either sex. And that's just an attraction. The T onwards is all mental people. Anyway, the document also promises to commission research on the way current regulations and guidance influence the operation of Scotland's public buildings in a way that impacts the country's estimated 24,000 trans and non-binary people. That estimated number has been proven to be complete and utter horseshit. For one thing, being truly trans is about a 1 in a million thing from a psychological point of view. Number two, they're basing it on a survey they did, which, when looked at, showed that the area of Britain that's got the most number of trans people in it is in London, and it is an area that is predominantly Muslim. Are we saying that all the Muslims are trans? Of course not. What they're saying is the survey was so badly worded that they didn't understand what the wording of the question meant. And so it turns out, because of the lack of understanding of English, this area has like the highest number of trans. But when it was applied across the country, they realised that the figure was about 2,000 times higher than what it should be. So divide the 24,000 by 2,000. It's a lot lower than you think, isn't it? Anyway, SNP ministers promised to ensure future legislation does not use unnecessarily gendered terminology and hand out cash to members of non-binary community to ensure they are consulted on future policy decisions. So they're being handed public cash simply because they define themselves as non-binary. That has got to be wrong. That's unfair. Why not hand out everybody the same amount of cash because they do identify as binary? Otherwise, you're making one group have more rights than another. And surely that is against the law. But hey, this is Humza Yousaf's very weird Scotland, where he seems to think that this is acceptable. Of course, he hands out money to one group more than another group, but we all know what gang he hands his money out to. Or rather, your money. Anyway, funding for mandatory training for NHS staff. Mandatory training for the 4 people in the country. It's going to cost millions, isn't it? And mental health professionals. Put the money into the mental health professionals because these people need them. Oh look, there's a picture of the vertical turd that is Maggot Chapman. She loves talking about children. She loves children, but not in a good way, in a very nasty, disruptive way that's very damaging to the children. Anyway, Mr. Fraser provoked a row over his cat-identifying comments, which drew the ire of the Scottish Greens, because of course they would, with Maggot Chapman saying that it's an utterly insensitive, inappropriate thing for an elected representative to say. No, it isn't. People who identify as cats need psychiatric help, and other people who want to do those sort of things to children need to be removed, not just from society, just removed. Maggot Chapman is one of them. She wants to do things to children which are utterly reprehensible. Anyway, rumours abounded in 2023 that school pupils at Banff Academy in Aberdeenshire were identifying as cats and demanding litter trays at school. I would have then thrown them out of school because we don't educate cats. Send them home. Release them onto the streets. That's what you do with cats during the day. You put them out. Let them roam the streets. There you go. You're a cat. Fuck off. Let's see how quickly they stop being cats. All a load of bollocks, and that's because this bunch are pandering to the mentally ill. Coming up. It's sheer madness. It's costing a lot of money. Nobody agrees with it, and the real numbers are much, much lower than what they're trying to do. It's all virtue and shit. And it is all just mainly, predominantly, very inadequate men who pretend to be women because they want to feel special. They're not transgender. That is such a rare occurrence mentally. It's just pandering and allowing it to happen. We need to reject it. We absolutely need to reject it. Now, if, for example, Eddie Izzard, wants to wear a dress, I'm not going to stop him. I don't care if a man wants to wear a dress, but I do care if he wants to walk into a woman's changing room and expose himself. Anyway, I shall stop there before it gets angry. Thank you very much for watching. Do hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. Till next time, stay safe, stay well, and I will speak to you later. Bye.